Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Movement Matters. Today we have Andrew with us, and Andrew, kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, hey, I'm Andrew. Let's see. I am an industrial engineer, technically by day. A lot of fun things I do outside of that. I'm also a professional photographer. I really, really love anything hardcore. Running, mountain biking, anything on a mountain, basically. Which also means I have a tendency to do things that send me to be Kenny's customer a lot. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, cool, cool. Well, look, so you kind of talk about already doing a lot of different things, right? Wearing a lot of different hats. So tell us about kind of when you first had an injury and ended up in the clinic. What led to that?
The first time I ended up in a clinic, or just the first time I hurt myself
Let's just stick with the first time you ended up in our clinic.
in your clinic. Okay. So this was only about a year and a half ago. I got IT band syndrome, which I don't know how much people watching this, listening to this really know what that is, but pretty typical overuse running injury. And I'd had it before, but this time I was like, okay, well, I have had a very full past when it comes to getting injured. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get this taken care of the right way this time. And I'm not going to wait, 6, 7 months for it to go away on its own where I don't do anything. So I went to go to physical therapy and insurance wouldn't pay for it unless I went to a doctor. So I went to a doctor who sent me to Kenny and got me on my feet a lot quicker than normal with, being deliberate about it and not just, okay, well, go run when it stops hurting and then it starts hurting again and don't run for a week and then just repeat that cycle for 6 months.
Yeah. So you got back. So again, we can talk about the specifics of IT band syndrome, but yeah, iliotibial band outside of the thigh, just really primarily creates some tension laterally. So it limits that inward motion of the femur or upper leg. And like you said too, I mean, if you have IT band syndrome or tendonitis or any of those things, it can impact your knee and it can impact your hip. And so in that case, we're able to kind of look at some things, right? Kind of go through that whole looking at mobility, stability, and function piece. But tell us, like, what did you learn? What was that first encounter like? That first kind of episode of care when we worked on that IT band syndrome. Like, what were your thoughts? Because I'm gonna kind of connect to some questions and some conversations we had during that time. But
Yeah. Um, Kind of my first thoughts were it's kind of interesting to see, okay, this guy is, you know, I'm here for which I knew enough about IT band syndrome, knew it was probably a hip problem, even though it hurt really bad in my knee. But that was about all I knew. Is like, okay, it's probably something with my hip. And this guy is like, okay, well, let's focus on, your core strength. And like, I think after 1 week or two, you had me doing planks. I was like, why am I doing planks for knee pain?
right, right, right.
So kind of the idea of, finding the imbalance and kind of working on mobility and understanding, okay, well, I hurt my knee hurts because my hip is weak because something else or some other things in my body are not quite right, and not just rehabbing that one spot but also finding what caused that. Let's fix
Yeah.
that.
So that's cool. And I think that one of the interesting things was in working with you was that you're an engineer, right? And so you've got a mind that's going to look at different things. And so whether you're talking about somebody who subscribes to that kind of whole Lean Six Sigma theory, or if you're continual process improvement, you kind of get that. You kind of get how if you connect the pieces and kind of connect that why, then it drives action. So the we kind of we had some conversations about all the things that you do or were doing at that time, but then we also were able to start talking about goals and how all those things maybe added a little bit of value to where you were. So if you were looking at your experience that first time, like you said, connecting, okay, let's say core strength, and maybe some inefficiency there, and then how it drives inefficiency in the rest of the system. What would you say was your biggest takeaway um, from that encounter?
From the first one,
Mhm.
probably that was my first kind of exposure to, actually taking care of your body when you're training. And um, I still by no means was quite all the way with, the idea of recovery. And that's a whole nother topic. But I was much more on the page of more is better, which is
Right.
basically the opposite. So that, and, an awareness of, okay, well, there's a right way for things other than my legs. And, when things with like running form, okay, it's not just, where on your foot you're striking, but how you're striking, the way your leg is moving when you're striking, what's the rest of your body doing, bringing bringing awareness to the rest of your body.
Yeah. Now, so I like that. So, we're going to make this kind of we talked about kind of just doing a three-part kind of setup to this talk, but that's a great wrap up. I think it's just awareness driving action, right? So awareness of what may happen at the core and how that may impact the upper body, but also how it impacts the lower body, and the awareness that your hip is a big driver from a locomotion standpoint. Whether you're talking about walking, talking about running, talking about somebody who's speed skating, the hip is just this huge driver, and we've got to connect those pieces together for that to kind of for the performance piece of it to make sense.